Well, hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panmo TV and welcome to this. It's the first really warm day of spring. It's pretty cold this morning, but it's actually, as you see, I've taken my winter clothes off, which is nice. I'm in my t-shirt. What a t-shirt it is too, look. Told you so, and his little UFO. And we did, didn't we? Yeah. It's one of my favourite t-shirts. I'm off on a little trip, not far, but it should be an interesting one. I mean, anticipating an interesting trip. I'm going to Birmingham because I'm speaking at BUFOG, the Birmingham UFO group. I've spoken there before. I'll put a link in the description box to my previous performance there. And I'm going there again to talk about BLC1, SETI and things like that. If you've seen my SETI videos and my various, what was the Nimitz one and the one about Simon Holland and things like that, you'll know you'll know a little bit about this subject. So that's my kind of like, that's what it's all going to be about. It's sort of a variation on the talk I've done before, but it's going to have a lot of differences. The Birmingham UFO group is a very old, well-established, well-organised society which does presentations, community outreach and sort of for ufologists, and also, unlike many of them, they do a lot of field research. Their chairman, Dave Hodrian, is a good friend of mine, absolutely dedicated to the cause. He's got a massive alien tattooed on his back. I'm not kidding. Well, I don't think I'll get him. I don't think he'll show it to me. But hopefully I'll get in a little bit of a short interview with him. So it's a beautiful day, 17 degrees. It's by far as warm as it's been so far this year. So yeah, let's go. Right, as you can see, they started to shifted that Andromedan scout ship. It totally moved everything around since the last time I was here. This is Oxford Station that way, Beckett Street car park that way. I think they mean probably that's the way to Botley. So your pedestrians use walkway to station entrance. I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to cross here, I think. Look right, look left. Right. It says look right, look left. Which? I'll try both. That was the green cross code, remember? Right. Okay. Here we go, past Bill Clinton's Willie. That's what that's known as. Well, honestly, those scientists are porting down, you know, they're going to get fed up of waiting. They're just going to lock up and go home if you don't get that spaceship there soon. Talk about hauntology. What time machine did she come from? Well, I've arrived safely, a few minutes late, well, about quarter of an hour late, and here's Dave Hodrian.
Hello.
You remember him? He's been on he's been on here before, and yeah, he's the chairman of the Birmingham UFO group and host of the event we're going to go to now. So let's head there. Hello, everyone. I'm at the Birmingham UFO group. I'm getting ready to go and do my talk, and here's the setup. It's all there. So pretty soon I'm going to get started. Hope you enjoy it. Pick up the mic, there's no going back. It's always that big moment when you pick up the mic and you think, that's it. I've just got to go forward now. Well, I am framed properly. I can't always see. I see the light shining on my head, then I know. That's the good thing about having a head like ours. You can see the light shine on it, so you always know where you are. We look at the view, and another one. With the three wise baldies. I've got he goes like that. See no eagle, hear no eagle. And the other one, yeah. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me back to the Birmingham UFO group. And thank you everyone listening or watching at home on Panmo TV. Thank you very much as well for watching. It is recording, this is. Yeah, I really want to it's great to see a great crowd here tonight. It's a really full house. I thought the good weather might bring you all out. Thank you very much to all of you for being here, to Dave and to Tasha and to Ron and everyone else who helps organise this. I mean, this group is like, it's almost unique. I mean, you know, there's plenty of places I go where I ramble and waffle and people listen to me, you know. But you guys go out there and you do field research. You really have to be congratulated for that, so well done all of you. So it's really great to be back. I can't remember if this is my 4th or 5th appearance here. I've done so many. All right, I'm going to talk about something which is kind of a development on a previous talk I gave, and if you may find some of this familiar. Apparently I did do the old version of this talk before. I don't remember, but there's all kinds of things I don't remember. You know, I was watching a video the other day, and like an amateur UFO documentary someone had done in around 2009, 2010. I saw myself in it. I was in it. I was interviewed. I thought, I don't remember doing that, but it was definitely me. Oh. Anyway, the reason I wanted to bring this, I've rehashed this whole presentation for you, is because something interesting, very interesting has happened. In April and May of 2019, something was picked up on by radio astronomers, and this became known as the Breakthrough Listen Candidate 1. Now, I'll be saying more about exactly what Breakthrough Listen is later, but it's a privately funded organization by Yuri Milner, the Russian oligarch, into what's known as SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And what they discovered was, it appeared to begin with, it is exactly the kind of thing they've been looking at. This is a signal from space, and what's known as a techno-signature. This is a sign of technology, a signal from space, which is more than just natural. It's not a biosignature will be a sign of life, like an atmosphere with oxygen. A techno-signature is a sign of some kind of technology. For example, radio waves, like we broadcast from Earth, things like that. And it was coming from it sounds like a long way away, a planet called Proxima b. It's 4.5 light years away from us, but in cosmic terms it's next door. It's orbiting the nearest star to Earth apart from the Sun. That is Proxima Centauri. And as it was analysed, the reason the reason the astronomers knew it was coming from this planet was because it had a drift rate, which means it was on a moving object circling the star. They could tell by the way that the wavelength kept changing. It's known as the Doppler effect. This happens on Earth. Everything on Earth is always changing in terms of a wavelength, because the Earth is continuously orbiting the Sun. But there was a separate drift rate of something orbiting the star, so it was coming from the planet. Very interesting. This is actually an illustration of it. Now, you may not know, this may not make much sense to you, because it is, unless you're familiar with radio astronomy, this is a waterfall chart. On the vertical axis is time, on the horizontal axis is basically frequency, and normally you just get like a random patterns, random like noise, and just like a TV tuned out. But you can see some lines there. These lines indicate a techno-signature, indicate something organised. Now, I first heard about this when I first came across this guy, Simon Holland. Are you familiar with him? Yeah, you see, yeah, you can like, he's an amazing chap, reminds me of Dave's dad a little bit, yeah. But he's a little bit, yeah. He's a Scottish guy, lives in France, and he used to be a skeptic, but he's kind of like partly come over to our side. I'll say he's done a 180. I wouldn't say it was a 180, but he's done at least a 120, I'd say. And he's becoming like really quite open-minded. As a result, the skeptics are kind of turned against him. There's one skeptic I know now calls him Simon Hogwash, and previously they were always on his side. He told me, well, he told his viewers on his YouTube channel that he had been in touch with someone involved in a particular project. He called this the source of his information. He has an anonymous source, you see. Lots of anonymous sources in this world, and we always get criticised for it. But he said that there was something. He released this information in a series of videos. He didn't give much away at first, but he said that a techno-signature had been detected, and that it contained information, including pictures. In the film Contact, which I'll be talking about in a minute, you know that the aliens actually do send a picture to the humans. It's really amazing. This stunned me. I was like, wow, because I just done a whole project on this and a whole presentation. This is the original title of the talk. I haven't changed the slide. I'm called this one BLC in UFOs, BLC1 in UFOs, but SETI in UFOs is the original title. It'll do just as well. Now, There is a hidden message in this image. I wonder if you can spot it. Now, it all will be revealed at the end. There are no prizes, especially not anonymous ones, which might be reptilian embryos and whatever's in that box. There's no prizes, but you may be able to guess or see what it is, but all will be revealed later. Now, this is an image of Proxima b. It is actually considered to be an Earth-like world, although because it is actually orbiting a red dwarf star, it's thought not to be suitable for life as we know it, Jim. It's, for example, it's probably tidally locked. So like the moon, it always shows one face towards the star. So one side it's going to be very hot, the other side is going to be very cold. But it's still, there's no doubt that seems to be the source of BLC-1. Now, the actual place, this is very interesting because the radio observatory that picked this up is called the Parkes-Murray Radio Observatory in Australia. Now, I don't know, have any of you seen this film, The Dish? That's not. Oh, you've seen it, great. Yeah, it's all about. I was actually lucky because I was in Australia in 2000 when this was released, and I got to see it when it first came out. Sam Neill, it's got a few other people, famous actors in it, and it's quite light-hearted as Australian culture tends to be. But the Parkes-Murray played an absolutely crucial role in the 60s in the Project Apollo, the NASA space missions. Now, there is a new project for SETI, and SETI is not a single scientific project. It's more a series of projects that are part of a movement run by the European Union, and it involves a whole series of radio observatories from actually not far from here in Greater Manchester is the most northern one, and the most southern one is in Namibia, southern Africa. The reason is they want to cover the entire celestial sphere, which means at some points of the year, the Manchester telescope can actually see the North Celestial Pole, and at other times of the year, the Namibian radio telescope can see the South Celestial Pole, so the entire sky is covered in one way or another. And Simon thinks this is all to do with BLC-1 and what he's discovered about it, because he said that there's a whole load of material coming out from his anonymous source. This is not a photograph of it, it's just a kind of like an illustration of what anonymous sources look like. And of course, everyone gets criticised for their anonymous sources, you know, David Grush, Lou Elizondo, etc., etc., Ross Coulthart. I mean, even though Ross Coulthart has revealed the name of one of them, and David's just talked about him, Jake Barber. So, you know, they're not always anonymous forever, but skeptics, it seems, they seem to get an anonymous source pass. Have any of you read Area 51 by Annie Jacobson? It's a book by... She has come up with some theory to explain the Roswell incident. And it's actually one of the most horrible stories I've ever heard. I won't repeat it, but it's one of the most shocking and frightening and disgusting stories I've ever heard in all of ufology. But she got it from an anonymous source. But she doesn't believe in aliens, so no one complains. It's not fair, is it? So this anonymous source said that there's more to BLC-1 than meets the eye. Now, Simon has been criticised very harshly. There's a scientist in Oxford who's also a vlogger called Dr. Becky. She had a bit of a go at him, called it trash. But Simon said that there's been discoveries, for example, now some of it is a bit dubious. He was on a live stream where they discussed the possibility there was a large spaceship heading towards the Earth from a distant planet. It's actually heading there now, it's very big, it's changing direction as it moves, and it is going to, at some point in the future, it's going to actually come to the Earth, and NASA are covering it up, and the astronomers are covering it up. The International Astronomical Union. Has anyone seen Three Body Problem on Netflix? You've seen that? Yeah, it's... have you seen the Chinese version as well? There's a Chinese series too. Has anyone read the book it's based on? Read the book, yeah. It's I'm afraid I gave up after the second book, The Dark Forest. What they're describing is basically the plot of this series. So if you've read the books or seen it, you'll know that. So I find that a little bit dubious. However, there is more. There is more. Simon also brought up this guy, Gunter Nimitz. Now, it's interesting that I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but the UFO evidence that sparked the post-2017 kind of new ufology outbreak was known as the Nimitz footage. Now, this refers to a ship, the USS Nimitz, an aircraft carrier. But I'm sure it's not connected that this guy's name is also Nimitz. Gunter Nimitz is a particle physicist from Germany. He has discovered something remarkable. He's essentially proved that quantum tunneling is real. By that I mean it's a long, complicated business, and Simon talks about it in great detail in his videos. But some particles can pass through objects or through solid shielding, which wouldn't normally allow them to pass, and they do it through quantum superposition. Basically, you heard of the double slit experiment. Well, they basically turn into a different kind of... They don't turn into a wave, but they turn into something that then essentially bypasses this entire universe. It goes into hyperspace, essentially, and comes out again. And he's even managed to play music through an entirely solid object, which wouldn't normally transmit that information through electromagnetic waves or particles. And Simon thinks that, according to his anonymous source, the source of this information, that Gunter Nimitz's quantum tunneling effect is used now in radio astronomy. Again, this is part of the plot of Three-Body Problem. And in fact, that comes up in the first book as well, and in the Netflix series. The question is, how plausible, if this is the case, why doesn't everyone know about it? Is there a cover-up? Well, is that possible? Is it feasible? But let's face it, we are not alone. I don't have to repeat the whole size of the universe, you know, millions of stars, millions of planets, millions of galaxies, etc. You've heard all that before, I'm sure. But it is a fact, it is a fact. It is physically possible that we're not alone. I mean, if everything we looked into in ufology is false, which is very unlikely, I think impossible. But if you leave that aside and just say, well, is it possible we could be the only life in the universe? Yes, it is physically possible, but it is so statistically implausible, even leaving aside the UFO evidence, that it's like saying, well, it's possible physically to win the national lottery 5 weeks in a row. If you're in it, you can win it. Buy a ticket, you could win. There's nothing stopping you, and there's nothing in the laws of nature stopping you winning that prize 5 weeks in a row. But the odds against it are 13 million to 1 raised to the power of 5, which is a number so extraordinarily huge you can't imagine it. This is very, very similar. People who say there's no aliens, they don't exist, essentially making that same claim. Oh, I'll leave that. Now, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, as I say, it's a movement. It's not one thing, it's not one person. It's a tendency, it's a movement that began in the 1960s, primarily promoted by a guy called Carl Sagan, who I'll be talking about a bit more later. But the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or as Stanton Friedman called it, the late great Stanton Friedman, God, I miss that guy, I really miss him. He called it silly effort to investigate. What Steve Bassett called it, I will not repeat, you know, at this polite juncture. But well, I think for some reason the slide is shining through my coat. I'll move that over there like that. Doesn't really add much to it, does it? But the thing about it is, right, one thing that the entire movement has in common, it has one belief that they all share. All the people, all the organisations, everyone involved shares this same primary belief. Now, the belief is centred around the fact that even the universe may well be teeming with life. It's everywhere, but that life can never actually come and visit us, even though we are taking steps to go and visit them. Now, we all know, of course, we have rockets to go to space and things like that, and we've sent humans into space. There's the International Space Station and things like that. So we're already taking our first steps into space. And this looks like some kind of designer shuttlecock for a badminton game. This is actually a spacecraft. It's called Project Daedalus. This was the first design for Project Daedalus was laid down in the 1950s, before Sputnik. And this is a craft, a starship. This is designed to reach Proxima Centauri within 50 years. It works by detonating nuclear bombs behind itself to act as a form of nuclear rocket. It could get to the nearest star within a human lifetime. And there's no real kind of scientific or engineering challenges against building this. We could build it now if we wanted to, we could get there. They could have built it in the 1950s, we'd be there now. So, we're reaching a point now, we humans, I'm going to leave aside, by the way, the secret space program. I know you had Andrew Johnson talking a little while ago. Now, I'm sure he did a very fascinating discussion on that, he's an expert on this. I'm going to just leave the secret space program to one side, though, and I'm going to just pretend it doesn't exist for now. I mean, in a sense, the secret space program reinforces the point I'm about to make. So, but even without it, I think I'll make the point successfully, which is, we, humans, are getting ready to take our steps into a position, into space, to the point where we could go and visit extraterrestrial civilizations. Then we will be the UFOs in their sky. So why is it that whenever evidence appears that suggests that they might have found us, it has to be rejected? These could be civilizations that are way ahead of us in terms of technology. Way ahead of us in terms of Fermi's paradox. I'll talk more about Fermi's paradox later. They could be considerably ahead of us. This was designed less than half a century after the first airplane took to flight. I mean, technology can progress by, it often stagnates for sort of thousands of years at a time. But then when it starts moving, it moves ahead by leaps and bounds. So why is it? Is there anything really unfeasible about the possibility that we have not been visited by other beings? Why is it so rejected? Why do people who are into SETI think, oh no, that's ridiculous? I'll show you some examples later. SETI really it dates back to the 1960s, primarily from Carl Sagan's book. But it was started off by this guy. This is a guy called Frank Drake. In 1961, he pointed the Howard E. Tatel radio telescope in West Virginia, USA. He pointed it at a star called Torchetti. And he pointed at another star called Epsilon Eridani. The reason is because these two stars are very sun-like, and he thought, if these sun-like stars, if the sun has produced the Earth, which has produced a technological civilization, maybe these other stars that are very similar to the sun may have done the same. So he pointed the telescope he pointed this radio telescope. Now he didn't pick up anything. Well, there was a false alarm because a plane flew over the top of it and gave off a radio signal which he thought came from there originally. That's an ongoing problem which I'll come back to. But in 1962, the following year, he organised something called the Order of the Dolphin, which is an odd name. It was a meeting. I don't know why they called it the Order of the Dolphin. I don't know if they put on strange masks and pranced around naked or anything like that. I don't know if it sounds a bit esoteric, doesn't it? But this Order of the Dolphin consisted of 18 people sitting around a table, including Drake, but along with Drake were some other geniuses and pioneers in the field of various sciences. One was Otto Struber, the great mathematician. Another was John Lilly, the guy who was an expert on marine biology and other forms of biology and the formation of evolution and life. And there were several other experts. One of them was a young astronomer called Carl Sagan. And his name is going to come up an awful lot in this particular discussion, because that man, he was one of the most junior members of the Order of the Dolphin at the 1962 meeting. But he would turn out to be one of the most influential promoters of the whole idea of SETI. Now, at the Order of the Dolphin, they came up with what's known as the Drake equation. This is very, very famous. You may have seen it. It's carved on stones in various places. And it is an equation which is intended to calculate the number of intelligent, communicatable civilizations there are in the universe. Well, they narrow it down to the Milky Way galaxy, because otherwise it's just too much. N is the number of these civilizations that can be spoken to through radio communication. And this is R. Now R is the rate of stellar formation. This is how new stars emerge out of interstellar gas and dust, and nebula, which is how stars are born. That's how quickly that happens. FP is the number of those stars that have planets. Now, when the Order of the Dolphin met in 1962, no one had any idea how much that was, what that proportion was. Since then, we've learned that FP is about 70%. It's huge. The number of stars that have detectable planets orbiting them it seems to be the most. If not all, have some form of orbiting planet. We certainly detected 70% have detectable planets. NE is the number of those planets which have the conditions for life. In other words, they are Earth-like. They have what they call biosignatures, oxygen, sugars, things like that in their atmosphere, things that can be detected which are biosignatures, methane, things like that. Or they're in the Goldilocks zone orbiting their planet. Not too hot, not too cold, just right for liquid water to form, that kind of thing. Again, in 62 we had no idea. Now we know that's about 17% of stars have planets which you could say fulfill that requirement. Fe is the number of those planets on which life evolves of any kind. Fi is the number of those planets in which intelligent life actually emerges. And we don't know how many of those are. I mean, we're still waiting for it on Earth, some might argue. Now, but then the FC. Now, FC is an important one. FC, we as a species would not qualify as FC until quite recently, barely a century or more. FC is the number of those intelligent life forms or intelligent civilizations on planets in which they master electromagnetic communication. That is, where communication is possible. And now, there is a missing factor in this equation. I call it FM. And it was never actually added to the Drake equation. I think it should have been, and I will be saying more about that later, exactly what FM is. And L is the length of time those civilizations survive before they either destroy themselves through what Sagan called the technological adolescence, that is the development of means of warfare that could destroy themselves, or natural disasters, or things, or the star blowing up and things like that. So that's your Drake equation. At the end of this dolphin discussion, after someone has thrown them some fish, and they said thanks for all the fish and all that sort of thing, they worked out that they reckon there's probably about 10,000. They reckon there's probably about 10,000 civilizations in our galaxy, in the Milky Way galaxy. When you consider there's like 100 billion stars, that's actually reasonable. Although, now, even if you wanted to be the ultimate conservative curmudgeon and whittle that down as low as possible, you could bring it down. It would be about 80 in the entire galaxy. And if you wanted to be much more liberal and you could apply it more broadly, you could have up to 100,000. It's really quite an extraordinary number. Now, part of the Order of the Dolphin, this is Frank Urey. Now, he was not there at the meeting, but his work was very important in the assessment that was made at that meeting to calculate the factors in the Drake equation. Now, Harold Urey, together with his colleague Stanley Miller, did an experiment it began in 1952 in Chicago, which was this. It was a chemistry experiment. This is what's known as the Miller-Urey experiment, and this was an attempt to reproduce the conditions in a laboratory test tube or laboratory apparatus that matched the primordial Earth. Now, you may have heard several times the phrase "the miracle of life." This is something that is often a part of religion. I mean, there's all kinds of legends about how life emerged on Earth. God breathed. He made things out of clay and he breathed into them and things like this. Life is actually not a miracle. Life is scientifically explicable. It's been studied more closely than any other element of this universe, and we know pretty much how life works. We know about photosynthesis, combustion, nutrition, reproduction, things like that. We know how it works. So life is not a miracle. So Miller and Urey decided to see if they could create life themselves. And so after this experiment is very interesting. At the bottom you see you have water, There's other elements here and other compounds which match the primordial Earth. We got here. There's ammonia. There's hydrogen. There's nitrogen. There's sugar. There's methane, and things like that. And they would run it through this water continuously through this loop where it was. And there's a heat source there, which symbolised by the sun, which is a Bunsen burner. Now, the electric arc is very interesting because it's an artificial form of lightning, and it's believed that lightning strikes were very important in the creation of life on Earth. Now, after they run this for about a year, they were quite amazed to find out the kind of material they were producing. All kinds of organic compounds were coming out of this mixture, this primordial soup. And by the time the experiment finished, there were traces of possible amino acids and things like that, the building blocks of life. I wonder what would have happened if the Miller-Urey experiment had continued any further. But this just goes to show, what they proved is that when the conditions for life, well they didn't prove it, but it indicates that when the conditions for life are there, the life is a naturally creative force, which means that it will emerge almost effortlessly out of these conditions, and once it's there, it never lets go. It adapts, it evolves, and it suits itself to its environment. And look at the variety of life we have on Earth. From the deserts to the poles to the bottom of the ocean, there's just so many different kinds. Which means we shouldn't be surprised to find life out there in the universe, even within our solar system, apart from the Earth. Now this is Carl Sagan. Now Carl Sagan he's what's known today as a pop scientist. In fact, I think he may have coined that phrase. Now, pop scientists, there's lots of different types of pop scientists. They vary an awful lot in quality. I mean, there's some right stinkers I could mention. In fact, I'll bring one up later, who could be described as pop scientists. There's others that are better than others. This is one of the most interesting. Now, in 1966, he published a book called Life in the Universe, which outlined the whole SETI initiative and how it worked, and it captured the public's imagination. And he wrote a book as well in 1987 called Contact, which was made 10 years later, was made into a film by Robert Zemeckis called Contact. And Dave mentioned this. Dave mentioned this film. It's really good, it's well worth watching. Jodie Foster there plays a scientist, Ellie Arroway, who discovers a signal from out in space. She's as obsessed with SETI, and in the film, the SETI is portrayed as something fringe and outlandish and weird and sort of woo-woo. So she's portrayed almost like a ufologist would be today. But in fact, SETI is something very mainstream. You know, SETI scientists are not, they're not sort of like pariahs, fringe, rejected mavericks like Foster's character was. They are very, very respected, and they're very renowned in their fields, and they're very successful. So the story actually misrepresents SETI in the scientific community. But yes, she finds a signal and all kinds of things happen. It's an amazing film. It's kind of what-if like speculation, like my own fiction as well, which I'll talk about later. This here is the Carl G. Jansky Very Large Array. It's interesting that Dave had this on his wallpaper, on his laptop, as you saw earlier. This is one of the most sensitive and powerful radio telescopes in the world. It consists of 27 antennas, each of them. They are 82 feet high, and you put them together and you can really hear anything that's going on up in space. It's capable of picking up almost anything up in space. The Carl G. Jansky Very Large Array features in the film Contact. You saw it in the poster there. It's because in the fictional Ellie actually works there, and this has been a very, very important part of the SETI initiative. Now, probably the biggest challenge for SETI is not actually detection. Detection is actually the easy bit. The hard bit is processing the data, because there is so much data out there. I mean, the universe is constantly emitting radio noise, or radio signals, or radio data in all amplitudes, all frequencies, all wavelengths. And you need very, very powerful computers to process that data. In fact, it's quite likely, I think, that the alien signal that we're talking about, even if it's not BLC-1, I know BLC-1 has been called into question. So Dr. Becky's kind of right in a way. Unless Simon Holland is right, we'll have to wait and see. But it's probably waiting right now on some magnetic disc or tape somewhere, waiting to be processed. And they're just waiting for it to be done. And this is a monumental task, because it's like listening for a whisper in a hurricane. And worse, no, it's worse than that. It's like listening for a whisper in a hurricane when you're standing in the middle of a rock concert venue. Because the Earth itself is a massive generator of radio noise. In fact, I mean, I told you about that on the very first SETI experiment by Frank Drake in 1961. He was confused momentarily because a plane flew over the damn antenna and released a radio signal which he thought was coming from Torchetti. He thought, no, damn it, it's coming from a bloody plane. That's an ongoing problem for SETI. Have anyone heard of SETI at home? Did you? I tried this when I was a kid. Did you try that? Yeah. I put it on my computer for a while. This was an attempt to clear the backlog of data by asking individual computer users to process the data on their machines as a kind of crowdfunding way. Well, what happened is they'd send you a block of data and you let your computer process it on downtime, so it'd be like a screensaver. And then when it was processed, you send it back to SETI and things like that. I did this for a while. It's quite fun. And so that's an attempt to clear the backlog. Now, this is a quantum computer, experimental quantum computer. Now, this is actually in Oxford. They're actually developing these things in Oxford. Quantum computing, I won't go into details about this, but it's a possibility that this invention could help clear that backlog. Like, it could solve a lot of the problems in electronics right now. So maybe that will help clear it. I think the success of SETI is inevitable. It's inevitable because we have the technologies. We have the technologies to do it. We have the will to do it, and we have the money. Now, thanks to Yuri Milner, we have the money to do it, and we also know now how prevalent the conditions we have on our planet are in the universe. The conditions we have on this planet are pretty much, dare I say, universal? But they are, they're everywhere. Planets, these are potentially habitable exoplanets. All these are very within, I think, 100 light years of the Earth. There's even one, a Torchetti, you see there's Torchetti E. That's actually around the planet that's, around the star, that's orbiting the star that Drake first looked at. But there have been some false alarms. BLC-1 may turn out to be one of these, we don't know yet. This is Susan Jocelyn Bell. In 1967, she was working at Jodrell Bank, not far from here, out near Manchester. And she discovered what she called LGM, Little Green Men. This was a pulsing signal from deep within the universe. Unfortunately, it turned out to be this, a pulsar. A pulsar is a form of neutron star which spins at a very rapid rate and has a beam of energy in a particular direction. And if you're in the path of that beam, what you'll actually perceive is like a repeating, pulsing signal. And that's unfortunately what it was. But when she first detected it, she thought, this has to be artificial. This can't be natural. A lot of disappointment there. Now, wow. Who's heard of the wow signal? This is a famous one, this was actually August the 15th, 1977, so this was like a whole decade later after the LGM fiasco. Michael Elner, an astronomer, was working at a radio observatory, and he came up. There was a computer. There was actually a computer that did everything overnight. No one knows they had computers there, so they didn't work overnight. In the morning, he looked at the printout and he saw this. Now, if you don't know anything about radio astronomy, these figures won't mean anything to you. There was a documentary actually on YouTube explaining what this all means. But the figures he's drawn rings around are indicative of a very, very powerful, very organised techno-signature. And hence he wrote the word wow in the margin because he was so impressed, and so he thought, what the hell is this? Now, the wow signal was never repeated, unfortunately, despite that area of the sky it came from constantly being monitored. It's never been repeated. There's now all kinds of theories about what it might be. Some people are now blaming it on something natural. But the interesting thing about the wow signal, it's on what is called the hydrogen line. This is the frequency at which the protium atom, the simplest, most low-level form of hydrogen, vibrates at. And the reason is, it's explained by Frank Drake, actually. He explains this, because he said we should look out for signatures on the hydrogen line, because he said if an alien was out there, they don't know what kind of frequency you're going to transmit on, and we don't know what frequency they're going to use. So we have to find one that it's likely we'll both agree on. And he decided it's probably hydrogen, because that's kind of the basic level, that's kind of the basic scientific level by which we establish all other forms of like absorption frequencies and things like that. So he says choose the hydrogen line, and this is on the hydrogen line. Now I think that's a big assumption he's making now. I think we don't know the aliens would think like that, but I'll come to that later. But this is a mystery that's never been solved. This is not really a false alarm in the same way that the LGMs were. This could be. We don't know what this is. It's still a mystery after all these years. But the wow signal is only one of many, many incidents which defy signals from space, which defy explanation. This is one from 2011. It's called the Lorimer burst. This was detected by an astronomer called Duncan Lorimer and his student Bob Nowotny at the University of West Virginia, USA. Very similar to the wow signal. It seems an organised transmission from space. We still don't know what this is, although for a couple of the readouts actually were from the microwave oven in the university cafeteria. I'm not joking. That is literally, that's what I mean about being inside a rock concert venue. This is the James Webb Space Telescope. It's an amazing thing. This is a really, really powerful instrument. This is good old-fashioned visual astronomy. It's a very, very powerful instrument for detecting life out there in the universe. And when it was launched, people were very hopeful about what it might deliver, and indeed it has not disappointed. It has discovered not things like the wow signal, but other visual evidence of possible extraterrestrial civilizations. One star in particular caught its attention, a star called KIC 2452582. So 2462582. Catchy name, isn't it? Well, they decided in the end to call it Tabby Star, after Dr. Tabitha Boyajian, the leader of the team that actually investigated this. Now, it's important to know how telescopes like the JWST work. As you can see, it has a lens like any other telescope pointing at the sky. It actually, what it does is it stares at the stars and it detects planets through eclipsing. The same way we do, is like when the moon eclipses the sun. And indeed other planets transit across the sun. We can see the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, transit across the sun. The JWST looks for points when the star's light dims momentarily and then brightens up again. And very often this will happen in a regular pattern, indicating there is an object orbiting the star. And not only can it detect the planets, it can actually detect from what's known from analysing the light from the stars during these dips. It can analyse things, it can learn things about the planet itself, like the kind of chemicals in the planet. That's how they know Fe. That's how they know that some of these planets have biosignatures on them. But Tabby Star is different. Tabby Star did not actually have a regular sort of occultation. What happened was it had a very, very deep and sort of transient occultation, which then went away, and it didn't form a regular pattern. Now this was a big mystery. She wrote an article called WTF, Where's the Flux? But that could have stood for something else, because they were so astonished. And after a while, they had to admit that this could be a Dyson sphere. Now this is a Dyson sphere, or Dyson swarm, is something theorized by a physicist called Freeman Dyson. He didn't invent that strange Hoover, if that's what you're wondering. That's someone else. The Dyson sphere, or Dyson swarm, he speculated that a very, very intelligent civilization, a very advanced civilization, would have the means to put objects in orbit around its star. Not its planet, its star. We humans could put objects in orbit around our planet all the time. But we only have a handful of things in orbit around the star. There's like the JWST, for example, is one of them. But it could be that if we become more advanced, we'll put more and more objects in orbit around the sun, to the point where there are so many of them, we could even join them together like this to create some kind of structure that it would be visible from distant reaches of space. And so Dyson actually recommended to SETI scientists they look for this particular feature of any stars. And he predicted what a Dyson sphere would look like if it was around a star. And guess what? It's exactly what Boyajin and her team saw around Tabby star. Now, the Breakthrough Listen team actually pointed a telescope and they analysed Tabby star, and they couldn't find anything else there, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing there. It could mean that there was something that built it and went away. Tabby star, you can find it actually. Now, there it is. That's where Tabby star. It's just in Cygnus, and it's in the constellation of Cygnus. Now, you can't see it with the naked eye. You need a pair of binoculars at least, or better still, a proper telescope. But it is actually visible. I'll skip that and that. Now, there's something missing, isn't there? Everything I've told you about SETI so far, what's missing? The answer is, we're listening, but we're not talking. We're listening for signals out in space, but we're not actually transmitting signals into space specifically intended to contact other civilization. So it could be, well, what if they're doing the same? It could be, there's a bit of role utilitarianism here, because it could be that both us and the aliens are sitting there on the phone like that, waiting for the other one to talk, and there's silence. I've had phone conversations like that all the time, you know. So, on November the 14th, 1974, a group of SETI scientists decided to say hello. Using the Arecibo fixed antenna, you may have seen it, it was recently destroyed, unfortunately, in bad weather. But it actually was also featured in the film Contact at Puerto Rico. They decided to send a transmission to a mini galaxy, a globular cluster. This is a mini galaxy called Messier 13. I've got a picture of it there. There we go. That's Messier 13. Now this is what they sent. This is in binary code. Now, what do you have at the top? I need a pointer here, but the white bit at the top is basically just explaining binary code. The purple and green bits, that's DNA. That's the DNA, as is the blue and white bits underneath. That's basically that's basically a diagram in binary code of DNA. Underneath that, you see a red human figure. That's what we look like. To the left of the human figure that is basically saying how big we are. That's saying how big we are in terms of dimensions. And on the right, that's how many of us there are, the world's population. The yellow bit underneath is actually a diagram of the solar system. There's the sun, there's the planets, but there's the big outer planets and Pluto, which is no longer a planet apparently. It's one of many in what's known as the Kuiper Belt. Now, as you see, the third rock from the sun, it's raised slightly. That's the Earth. And then underneath that is actually a diagram of the Arecibo antenna in binary. At the bottom is the frequency of the transmission when it was sent. Now, they sent this was transmitted to Messier 13. There's a recording of it, you can actually hear it going through, and then everyone applauds at the end. And they sent this hoping the aliens would understand it. So we decided to say hello. One problem, M13 is 25,000 light years away. According to Einstein's laws, it's going to take 25,000 years for the signal to reach them. If they reply straight away, it's going to take another 25,000 years for their reply to get back to us. So we've got to wait 50,000 years for them to say, who is this? Are you a crank caller? Go away. As M13. Now, Breakthrough Listen. Now this is the privately funded SETI outfit, which is completely reignited and re-energized the whole project, the whole mission of SETI. You can see here it's got some very, very famous supporters. Now, Yuri Milner, the Russian oligarch, is standing at the back behind Professor Stephen Hawking, you can see there. But there's some other figures you might recognise. There is, I believe, Avi Loeb in the red tie, who's now very much into UFOs. Richard Branson is also supporting this. And this is actually really a very, well, it's behind a lot of this information that we're getting here today is from Breakthrough Listen. Now, there's another way that we can send transmissions. There's one way we can talk to the aliens. We can send them transmissions. We can send radio signals to them. and just hope they reply after 50,000 years. But also, on our deep space probes, we have put several items which are intended to communicate. Now, it's very, very interesting, this. Carl Sagan helped design this, actually. This is the famous golden disc, which is a gramophone record, which is designed to be played. And there's, on the cover, there's instructions about how to build a gramophone player, how you build a record player. And anyone younger than me is saying, what the hell's he talking about? What's a gramophone? What's a record? Can you imagine iTunes on a black plastic dinner plate? Got it, kids? That's a record. Again, there's a hope that the aliens will understand it. We don't, again, but because you can't, this is a problem. The disc itself has greetings read out in a number, I think there's 50 human languages. There's a message from the Director General of the United Nations and various other, there's sounds of, it's called the Sounds of Earth. And again, we've got to hope the aliens actually understand this. On the cover, there's an attempt to communicate using non-linguistic forms in terms of pictograms. There's a series of pictures intended to communicate information. So there's a very interesting project to do the same on nuclear waste repositories, in case, so that people in the future who may not speak our languages know not to open them up because there's toxic waste inside them. And here's another one. This is a famous one. This is on that what you just saw was the Voyager golden disc. This is the Pioneer. Pioneer was another deep space probe, currently rocketing out into the universe. And this is a communication, apparently, which the aliens hopefully will understand. I don't know what on the top left, I don't know what that is exactly, that symbol. Now, the star-like symbol, believe it or not, is actually a map. It's a map which shows where the Earth is measured to all the nearest LGM pulsars in the universe. So hopefully when the aliens see that, they'll know that that means that's where the Earth is. So it's a very strange form of map. On the right you see two human figures with, and behind them is an image of the Pioneer probe itself, indicating that it reveals how big we are. It reveals what we look like. And as you see, one of the figures is doing this. Right, now this is a universal human sign of greeting and friendship, and it's basically saying my hand is empty, I'm not a threat to you. That's what it's saying. Now, it is true that among human societies that is universal. Wherever you go, you could go into the middle of the Amazon jungle or New Guinea, and you could meet some people who have had no contact with the outside world at all. They will understand that. But in terms of this plaque, we're talking about somewhere a little bit more exotic than New Guinea. We don't know, you see again, we don't know that the aliens will understand that. We don't know. For all we know, this could mean we're coming for your grannies. In which case, we're in big trouble. I mean, maybe that's why maybe what Simon's right when he was on that live stream, he's right, and they really are sending a big spaceship towards us to wipe us out, like in Three-Body Problem. Maybe that's happening because of that. Maybe they misunderstood this. At the bottom you see another, it's rather, that at the bottom is actually similar to the Arecibo message. There is a list of, there's a row of planets, and you can see there's a line and an arrow with the Pioneer probe coming from the third rock from the sun, hopefully communicating to the aliens that that's where we come from. Oumuamua. Now, I don't have time to go into this in detail, but it's fascinating. But basically, Avi Loeb has been, this is really what got Avi Loeb into UFOs, his work on this, because he believes this is an interstellar artificial object. This rudely christened the turd picture is not a photograph of Oumuamua. This is an artist's impression. The only photograph we have of it is a little red dot. That's the best photo we got of it. So this is not, it's intended to look, they made it look like a natural object. We don't know that it looks like that. I'll leave that. Oh, hang on. Now, I think, is this the time? Yeah. This is Carl, let's go back to Carl Sagan. Now, Carl Sagan is, as I said, he's one of the pioneers of the SETI, one of the great popularizers of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. What do you think his attitudes are to UFOs? Let's have a look, shall we? Let's have a look. You're going to find this very disappointing, I'm afraid. Hope this works, hope this works. Yeah.
Since 1947, there have been hundreds of thousands of reports of UFOs, unidentified flying objects. This subject has more, I think, to do with religion and superstition than with science.
See what I mean?
That was the story told by Betty and Barney Hill. Virtually all scientists who've studied it are skeptical, but UFO enthusiasts think the Hill case is a classic example of a close encounter of the third kind. Why?
The Hills' own psychiatrist described their story as a kind of dream. There's no corroborating evidence.
Dr. Simon did not say that.
It's worthless. And yet, this is one of the best attested cases of UFO close encounters. For all I know, we may be visited by a different extraterrestrial civilization every second Tuesday. But there's no support for this appealing idea. The extraordinary claims are not supported by extraordinary evidence.
There are curious daylight photos of UFOs. Some look suspiciously like hats or hubcaps thrown into the air. Photos can be faked. More common are unidentified lights at night. They're often aircraft, but if we can't identify a light, that doesn't make it a spaceship.
Most reports of unidentified flying objects turn out to be something else, like a refracted image of a bright planet or the re-entry of an artificial satellite. Some are psychological aberrations, some are hoaxes. Never is there any compelling physical evidence, a detailed close-up photograph of a strange spacecraft or a small device of extraterrestrial manufacture, or a book written in alien hieroglyphics. Never. There are reports of such things, but never the things themselves.
Since Cosmos was first released, interest in UFOs has persisted. It seems to me that there are fewer sightings of strange objects in the skies these days, and more stories about personal encounters with alleged extraterrestrials, like the account of Betty and Barney Hill that we dramatized. There are still people who claim to have been abducted by aliens, or even sexually abused, or even impregnated by them. Best-selling, purportedly serious books have been written about such claims. But the critical fact remains that all we have still is just anecdote. There are no close-up photographs, no artifacts, nothing that will convince a skeptic. All there are is stories. And stories just aren't good enough on a matter of this importance. I'm still waiting for hard evidence.
There's not a single verified or checked out report which is at all connectable with the possibility of extraterrestrial life. If you would believe, as the flying saucer cultists would have us believe, that the majority of the saucer reports visitations, they have a very strange situation. That means several spaceships are coming to the Earth over interstellar distances every day, as if all the anthropologists in the world were to converge on one of the Andaman Islands in the Indian Ocean, because they just invented the fishnet there or something.
All right, there's old Carl, who is, I hope you found that as irritating as I did. That's Carl, yeah, Carl Sagan. Now, what you just seen was a series of clips that I compiled from Carl Sagan making comments about UFOs. Now, there's factual errors in that. For example, Dr. Benjamin Simon, the Hills psychiatrist, did not say they were having a dream. That's not true. But you see him in various places. First, you see him in the Cosmos series from 1980. Then you see him 10 years later, Cosmos Update. That was just shortly before he died. And you see an earlier picture of an earlier film of him when he's a young man sitting next to the James Bond bad guy there, who I wish we'd dropped him in a tank of sharks. Yeah, what's weird is you see him across a period of his life from young youth to old age, and I didn't detect any change in his position for all that time. He said the same thing continuously over and over again, as if it's just something very obvious. I don't think that's possible for anyone who's not willfully ignorant or deceptive. Which it is, I'll leave that up to you to decide. But there's worse. I'm going to show you now a clip from a more recent production. Thanks, Tasha.
Dr. Seth Shostak is a world-renowned astronomer. He works for the SETI Institute, a scientific organization whose mission is to search the cosmos for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence.
What we try and do is try and eavesdrop on signals that they might be sending our way.
Okay.
Just trying to hear ET's radio broadcasts. I'm sure there are a lot of planets out there that have plenty of life that's not very clever. Life that doesn't write great literature and doesn't build radio transmitters, but we're not going to hear from those guys.
No.
Our galaxy has 200 billion stars. It probably has 1 trillion planets. That's with a T.
Right.
That's a large number. Now, if this is the only planet where anything interesting is happening, that makes us a miracle.
Right.
And one thing you learn from studying astronomy is that every time you believe in miracles, you're wrong.
Like many scientists, Dr. Shostak thinks that alien life exists, but we just haven't seen it yet. So what does he think of Bridget's UFO encounter?
I had a close encounter in central Los Angeles, Brentwood, and it involved a 45-foot craft.
But no pictures.
Selective editing there.
I was in shock. I think you would be also. You know, if I had a camera, I would still have someone ridicule me.
Can I ask, what about the craft made you think it was extraterrestrial?
It was nothing that I had seen before. It had no wings, it had no fuel.
Well, you said that, but you would have seen something like that in the movie.
Yeah, I've seen spaceships on TV. It's all children's TV channels now. It's spaceships everywhere.
I think that if there were compelling evidence, yes, you would have tens of thousands of academics beavering away, working on it. If the evidence is poor, they're not going to waste their time. That's the thing. And the fact that they're not doing that means that the evidence is poor. There's not a very good case for alien visitation.
Dr. Shostak's views make complete sense to me. I wanted to ask the doctor, why do ordinary people like Bridget and Darren believe they've seen such extraordinary things?
There's something about a conspiracy that I think is very empowering. If you, for example, think that we're being buzzed by alien spacecraft, and those pointy-headed, nerdy scientists down at the local university don't agree with you, you know something they don't know.
Yes.
And so there's something empowering about
It's a cash in.
that. Yeah, I think that's understandable.
Right, so that was even worse. One sec, I'll get back to where we were.
I got invited to be on that then.
You too, yeah.
Yeah, and I turned it down.
Good, well done.
I watched it, I was happy I did.
Yeah, that's incredibly, that was an appallingly dishonest programme.
What was the name of that series?
It's called BBC Conspiracy Road Trip. Yeah. I was asked to take part in that series myself. It was either the UFO one or the 771. I declined. And like yourself, Dave, I'm glad I did it. Yeah, when I watched it, I was very relieved. Now, what you saw, I don't know if any of you noticed where Dr. Shostak was talking to the witness Bridget. They kept cutting away. They kept cutting away. You kept hearing their voices in the background where you were seeing shots of, of other faces in other areas. That's selective editing. That conversation probably never happened the way it was portrayed in that particular program. My advice to you, if someone from the mainstream media comes to you and asks you to be in a documentary, they say they have an exciting opportunity, they want to produce an honest, heartfelt expose and profile of the UFO community, tell them to take a hike to the nearest star. That's my advice. This is Enrico Fermi. Enrico Fermi, this is when we get to the interesting bit, alright? Enrico Fermi was a physicist and particle physicist, and he was very, very interested in SETI. Now he came up with what's known as the Great Silence, or the Fermi's Paradox, and it's described very much in this diagram here. At the bottom line, you see there's the Earth. There's when the Earth was formed, and you can see the Earth has got to this point here. This is time here along these lines. But there's another planet which is much older. It was formed around the same. It was formed before the Earth. But look, it's 3.46 billion of development beyond where we are today. So if there's life on there, it's likely, possibly, barring certain circumstances, to evolve a civilization far more sophisticated than ours. There are many planets in the universe like the purple one there. So the question is, where are they? This is the question. This is what the way it's called the Great Silence. We've not heard from them, according to Fermi. There's been no signal from them at all. They've not contacted us. They've not visited us. They're just not here. So the question is why? Why haven't the aliens come to see us? Now, the answer to Fermi's paradox, the Great Silence, is very simple. They have. It's as simple as that. This is where this talk gets more interesting, I know. And this is now, here we have, obviously, as Carl Sagan did say, it's one of the few things he was right about, photos can be faked. Yes, they can. But not all UFO photos are fake photos. This is a series, and certainly the top two I think are probably real. I don't have to repeat the fact that the evidence is overwhelming that the aliens are not actually, well, the aliens may be out there in the universe somewhere, but they're also here already, they're here with us on Earth. They've already found us. Now this is interesting, this is a crop circle. This appeared at a place called Chilbolton in Hampshire in 2001, and it's a fascinating image here. It's like a dot matrix picture, a bit like the old newspapers used to be, and it's very, very, very skillfully done indeed. Now I know there's several theories about who makes these things. I've met people who claim to have made these things. I've met people who know the people who made these things. No one, including the specific ones I'm going to show you. However, when I ask them to identify themselves, they'll say, "Oh no, we can't tell you. We can't tell you who they are. It's an anonymous source." So yeah, I mean, obviously, no one wants to be charged with criminal damage and trespass. Matthew Williams has been prosecuted for those, much to his pride, and he wears it on his sleeve. Is he here? He's not here. That's a pity, because I love triggering Matthew Williams. I hope he's watching at home. Yeah, so this appeared at Chilbolton. Now, well, the interesting thing about Chilbolton is that, I'll show you in a minute, but there's something special about the fields near Chilbolton. But this is another image that appeared here. This might look a bit familiar to you. Does it look a little bit, as you see, it's next to the face here. Does it look a bit like this? It's the Arecibo message. It's been sent back to us in a field in Hampshire. It's amazing. So we didn't have to wait 50,000 years. The aliens have already replied by sending us back the same message we sent them. Or is it? Look at it more closely. At the top, you see, I don't know what this means at the top, but you see the green and the blue bit and the white bit in the middle, which represents what the DNA molecule on the Arecibo message, is different. And look at the red figure. That's a grey alien, isn't it? It looks to me like a grey. And on the right, on the left, you can see how big they are. They're smaller than us. On the right, that's how many there are. And the yellow line is a representation of their solar system. And as you can see, they have a star, and there are what looks like two planets raised up, the third and fourth planet from the sun, from their sun, and there's a ring of four is also raised up. I think that might represent the moons around a gas giant. Then there are some other large planets there. Now the purple bit at the bottom, I don't know what that is, no one knows what that is, it's indecipherable. But another crop circle appeared with that image, which was essentially that image. Now this is one of the most amazing crop circles I've ever seen. There's the circular structure I won't go into. There was actually a message in there, encoded, which I won't go into. But look at the picture. Look at the image. It's another dot matrix image of a grey. Amazing. Apparently all done with guys with planks in a single night. I mean, I can't prove that's not the case, but I just thought, isn't it incredible? And it's connection. It looks like the grey. It's a more complex version of the grey alien there. And it appeared in the same field the following year. That appeared the following year before the first two structures. This is the Chilbolton Radio Observatory, right next to that field. It's a radio telescope that is used in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence regularly. Now this is Terence McKenna. Has anyone heard of him? You familiar with Terence McKenna? Very interesting chap. He was a big critic of SETI. He said that the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, as it's being conducted today, is a bit like pointing a telescope at the sky and expecting to find a good Italian restaurant. Slight exaggeration, but I know what he's talking about. And what he's talking about is FM, the missing, what I think is the missing factor in the Drake equation. M stands for mindset. It's not just about planets forming and developing life and that life getting intelligent and having the ability to communicate with us. It's them having the mindset to do so. Should we be anthropomorphizing the way we do with these aliens? Oh, they'll transmit on the hydrogen line. We know that because they would do that. They're going to transmit radio waves into space to try and contact us. We know that because that's what we do. Maybe we should put ourselves in the aliens' feet, in the aliens' shoes, even if they have 2 feet. We shouldn't put ourselves in their shoes. So I know the point that Terence is making. It's exaggeration, but I know exactly what point he's making. We're dealing with a form of life that is so different from us. It's evolved completely from the most primitive microbes up until complex, multicellular, intelligent organisms. It may not even have it may think with in a totally different way to us. It may not even have a brain the way we have a brain. It may be so different. Now, communication is tricky. Now, there is communicate. How difficult is it to communicate between species on our planet? We interact with other species, dogs, cats, other pets, farm animals, and there is limited communication there. If your dog wants to be fed, he'll let you know. If he wants to go out for a walk, he'll let you know. If someone comes to the house, to the front door that he doesn't like, he'll let you know. There's limited communication between species there. But sometimes dogs will do things and weird things. You'll think, why is the dog doing that? We don't know. We're not dogs. He knows he's a dog. We do an awful lot of things that dogs can't comprehend. You know, I couldn't sit down with a dog and explain to him the way this message I'm giving to you right now. And it's possible when we are dealing with these ETs, when we're addressing them, it could be like that. It could be that we are basically dogs trying to communicate with humans. Now, the equivalent. Now, it doesn't even mean that people say, well, it's because they're going to be more intelligent than we are. But it doesn't, even if they're not, it's not just about levels of intelligence. It's about, as Ludwig Wittgenstein, Ludwig Wittgenstein was a philosopher. He was also a hospital porter, by the way. Something which gives me a lot of pride. And he once said, even if a lion could speak, we still could not understand him. By that I mean that it's not just levels of intelligence, it's just the way we think, the way we perceive the universe, the way we cogitate, communicate. It may be so different that the kind of communication that the SETI science are talking about is impossible, and that Terence McKenna is right. Terence McKenna was a UFO witness, as well as a pioneer of other forms of philosophy and wisdom. And I must say, actually, from what I read about contact experiences and about the behaviour of UFOs and extraterrestrials when they encounter us, that seems to bear out what McKenna is saying. This doesn't mean that communication is impossible. It just means it's going to be far more difficult than we thought it ever was. And indeed, I can't do better than recommend this film, Arrival. I bet you've seen this, Dave.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, who else has seen it?
Yeah.
Good. Now, alien invasion movies vary an awful lot in terms of technical quality and intellectual content. Some of them are very, very bad. This one scores highly on both axes. It's the best alien invasion film ever. And the centre of this story is linguistics.
Yes.
The desire to communicate with aliens and how you do it. Because the film is basically, it's not about, you know, saying, take me to your leader, we come in peace, etc., etc., etc. It's not about that. It's about how do you even say hello to these things? How do you speak to them? And that's what the film is about. It's about developing a way of speaking to them. Fascinating movie. Absolutely, Denis Villeneuve movie. Brilliant. Absolutely 100% recommend it. And now we come to the hidden message in this image which I used for the title shot. Have you spotted it? If you've seen this talk before, don't give it away. If you've not seen this before, did you spot the secret message in this particular image? You didn't. All right. This is the Carl G. Jansky Very Large Array, again, filmed at sunset, photographed at sunset. They're pointing their antenna up into the air, distant galaxies, thousands of light years away. But what they're looking for, if you see there, is hovering right above the observatory. And they don't see it. And that's the irony of the whole SETI movement. Now, this is the fun bit. Is there a cover-up, Ben? Are they covering things up? Now, it's really weird because I wavered a little bit when I was watching Simon Holland talk about BLC-1. Because I thought, could this be some kind of cover-up? He talks about the source of the information. Nothing's been published yet. They don't want to publish it yet. Things like that. Now, I'd also ask two questions. Would the government want to do it, and could they do it? Firstly, would they want to do it? Now, would they want, if they discovered a signal from outer space, would they want not to tell us? Would they want to keep it quiet from us? That's an interesting question. I don't know. I don't know. I do think, because if anyone says to me, well, they covered up Roswell, they want to cover up crash retrievals, so they definitely want to cover up this. But I say no. I think there's a very big difference in terms of implication between saying that star millions of light years away has intelligent life on it. We've just discovered it. There's a that's different implication to saying alien life has already reached us. They landed in this field the other day and we got rid of the wreckage 80 years ago and we forgot to tell you. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, sure. The political implications of those two statements are totally different, aren't they? But believe it or not, I'll skip that bit. Now, this is the Brookings Institute. This is the symbol of the Brookings Institute. Despite what I just said, in 1959, this organisation published a document, and you get it on PDF. I've read it. It's a long document. There's only one page that's really interesting, which said, I'm paraphrasing now. I can't remember the exact quote, but it basically said this was at the very dawn of the space age. It advised NASA and the Soviet Space Agency, if they found traces of intelligent life in space, even if it was intelligent life that had long gone and left behind artifacts, it may not be a good idea to shout it from the rooftops. They were concerned about the effect it would have on culture and society in terms of the people's trust in government, people's belief in God, the church, things like that. So this, in a sense, could be used as because this was a very influential think tank. It could be used to suggest that this is evidence that there was indeed an impetus to recommend a cover-up, even though I didn't actually say it in as many words. This is exactly the kind of thing that the Brookings Institute was talking about. This is the face on Mars, the pyramids and things. I could talk for a long time on that. I won't go into details. But I do believe these things are not natural, and there are other artifacts on Mars which I believe are not natural, indicating that in the distant past, Mars indeed may well have had a civilization, an intelligent life. There's no doubt, billions of years ago, even before life evolved on Earth, Mars had a very different environment. It had liquid water flowing on it, which means it must have had a thicker atmosphere than it has today, and it must have been an awful lot warmer. So, in other words, it would have been very Earth-like. It was quite like the Earth billions of years ago. Maybe life evolved there, even an intelligent animal species capable of building things like this. And when the Mars changed into the desolate, dead world it is today, it left behind these artifacts for us to discover later on when intelligent life evolved on Earth. So this is perfectly possible. And indeed, this photograph was taken in 1976 by the Viking orbiter. And indeed, there was, I think, a disinformation campaign to suppress it. Now, another reason I think that there's no real reason why they would want to cover. They'd probably not actually carry out a cover-up if a signal was actually created, was actually discovered. Another reason they would not do it is because they have a protocol in place. The government have a protocol in place with the SETI Institute to publish the information. Now, what would happen is the International Astronomical Union has come up with a 5-point or a multiple-point plan which is negotiated with states and with the SETI scientists of what to do. If a signal is discovered, they immediately start sharing that information with other scientists, and it's analysed, and the moment it is confirmed, it is, as in the film Contact, it is then distributed to the media for the world to see. And this organisation actually has a wonderful name, the Institute of Astronomical Telegrams. I don't know who thought of that. That's what it's called, this plan. So there is a plan in place to do such a thing. Nothing like that exists with UFOs. There is no official plan to release information to the media and to the public should a mothership hover above New York or something like that. The government have no plan for that at all, which they've told us about. Certainly they have no official plan to release it. Now, next question. Not would they want to, but could they? Would it be possible to introduce a cover-up of a signal from space, supposing the government did want to do it? I think the answer is no. The reason is, it's to do with the flows of information. Now, let's go back to the crash retrieval and compare them again. A UFO crash retrieval is comparatively actually quite easy to cover up. If you have the state apparatus and control to do so and resources to do so, it can be done quickly and simply, and usually it's successful. What you do is you simply seal off the area where the incriminating forensic evidence is, the decisive evidence of an extraterrestrial intelligence in the form of craft and bodies. You remove that evidence, and then you put out a cover story saying it was a weather balloon or it was something else like that, which is what they did at Roswell. In terms of flows of information, that's very easy because you only need to control a local area. Now, in terms of a signal from space, that's very different because the data is above our heads. SETI scientists work among numerous of these are all radio observatories from around the world, and also visual observatories as well. There's a huge network of them across the world. I told you about the EU one that stretches from Manchester to Namibia. They're constantly communicating, sharing data. None of this is encrypted among thousands of people in countries across the world. That is what you might call a top-heavy conspiracy. In other words, it couldn't work. And also, there's amateurs. Astronomy is a very popular hobby. Millions of people around the world do it. Many people have their own telescopes. You might say, well, they have these amateur telescopes couldn't pick up the same things that the observatories could. True, but amateur astronomers can actually log on to the observatories and use their telescopes remotely on the internet these days. By that I mean, astronomy is the world's only truly democratic science. The data is above our heads for us all to see. I don't think you could cover that up. So even if they wanted to, they couldn't. So if we see a signal from space, it probably will be a massive news story. It'll sweep across the world, and there probably will be announcements from heads of state, including this chap here, Donald Trump, President of the United States. He would come up on the podium and he would say, I am here to tell you today that we have discovered life in the universe. It's millions of years away on a distant planet. Knowing him, he'll probably say something like, well, I need to sign an executive order before this is true. Yeah. What about this person? What's his name? Keir Starmer. I've forgotten his name, yeah. Not the most memorable Prime Minister we've ever had, is he? I've completely forgotten who he was, yes. Are we going to see Keir Starmer come outside Downing Street and do a press conference and say, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Keir Starmer and I'm the Prime Minister. I'm going to talk to you about something interesting today. I've just have word that there's actually aliens out there in the universe. They're millions of light years away, yes. It's ironic, isn't it? Even when he's planning to starve us to death, he can't be any kind of charismatic despot, can he? You know, it's not like the movies, for goodness sake. Oh, this is a meme I hope will go viral very soon. And probably SETI wouldn't be enough, it would have to be UFOs. It would have to be ET disclosure to get this guy. Who's the knobber now, Brian? Yes. Bryce Zabel, who wrote AD After Disclosure with Richard Dolan. I bet you've read that, Dave. How many of you have read that book? You've got to read it, it's brilliant. It's written like about 12 years ago, it's absolutely great. He said that ET disclosure would be science's 9/11. They spent so long ridiculing, disparaging, abusing, defunding, deplatforming, cancelling people for saying not only are aliens out there, but they're visiting us. They've done that so much, and then they're going to have to eat humble pie and apologise to us. Now, I think Professor Chris French, I think he would, because he's a nice chap. I think he's all right. Neil deGrasse Tyson also, I think, would come forward and say I was wrong. This chap wouldn't. I don't think he has the maturity and humility to do so. I think Professor Brian Cox would retire, and so would some of the others. I sometimes wonder about Simon Holland when I'm feeling cynical. Maybe his conversion is somewhat pragmatic. I kind of wonder if what Holland is doing, he sees the writing on the wall and he's manoeuvring himself up the starting grid. He's essentially more intelligent than the others. I do wonder that. Oops. So now, go back to me. Let's talk a little bit more about me. I have a website, Hospital Porters Against the New World Order, Hapanwa. If you want to know anything about me, it's all on there. And there's a massive amount on there. I'm a very prolific creator. But I've read a book, so I've written a book. Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. Now, I didn't bring any with me. I was kicking myself when I realised I'd forgotten. I could only get a handful in my bag anyway. But if you want them, you can get them online. They're £10 on Amazon. Or just leave me your address, I'll send one to you, signed. It's a story about the kind of things we talk about in this group, but it asks the question, what would happen if you got the truth instead of the lies? And it's a speculative fictional novel, and it spawned a sequel there, Roswell Revealed, A World After Disclosure, Roswell Redeemed, Humanity After Disclosure. Yeah, and that's the Roswell trilogy. And so we come back, let me finish with this image again, I want you to study it. SETI scientists staring at the sky, desperately looking for something. But they're so busy looking millions of light years away, they can't see what's just a few feet above their head. And here's an even better, I'll finish, this is an even better picture. This one really illustrates it perfectly. Look at that. That's great. Can you see that? Yes, indeed. Look behind you. He's right there. Having a wee against a tree. Idiots. No, we've got to keep looking out there. We've got to keep looking out there. And that is basically the difference between ufology and the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Thank you very much, everyone. You want to take a break before Q&A?
Yeah, because we're doing Q&A.
Oh, I'm happy to come back and take your questions, but you want to have a break first?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Do you want the light up or back down?
Sorry?
Do you want the light like this? Or?
Oh, it's fine, yeah, fine. I should like, before we begin, I'd like to add that maybe it'll give you inspiration. That something I was going to mention in my talk. I think the success of SETI actually will have a positive knock-on effect on ufology, despite this division that I've mentioned. So, for example, I think once it's announced that there's signals coming from the stars, it's going to open the gates in people's minds towards the kind of questions we want them to ask relating to the UFO phenomenon. So in other words, it will inspire them to think, well, if they're up there and we're seeing strange things in the sky, maybe they found us. That kind of thing. So that's what I heard. Yeah. Any questions or comments, ladies and gents? Sir?
Did you hear about the experiment with great story, I've forgotten the guy's name now, where he actually sent a signal to other scientists and said, right, I'm going to use this particular code. Can you unlock the message? And nobody could. And it was a case of it was just to sort of illustrate that he's used a common sense sort of approach, but no other scientist got what he'd actually done. I'll have to get more details and look it up. It was a few years ago.
It doesn't ring a bell. It does not ring a bell. Yeah. But I mean, there's been occasions where, obviously, with the quantum computing I mentioned before. There's now a problem, which is that, and AI, is that possible every single piece of encryption on every computer and database on the earth is going to have to be upgraded. And they're going to have to find a way to upgrade it so it's immune to quantum hacking, which is going to be very, very tricky. It's going to make Y2K look like nothing.
Yeah, sorry, just follow up to that on the quantum computing. So yesterday they released a story that I believe it was the Chinese supercomputer in 4 hours did process 482 billion years worth of data.
Yeah, I heard about that, yeah. They're getting similar results at least in the Science Centre at Oxford. Yeah. Any other questions or comments later? Sir?
Yeah, what's your view about the Arecibo reply from Jill Bolton?
Do you mean, was it made by people or made by...
Do you believe it's real? Or?
It's impossible to know for sure because unfortunately there was no way to gather data from forensic data from the actual crop before the harvest. So we don't know. What I do know is there's no specific evidence that humans made that. In other words, no one has come forward and said, I did it and this is how I did it. Now I understand why. I understand if they did that, they would probably be prosecuted for criminal damage and for, oh thanks mate, thank you, and for trespass, so I understand that. But it's still, oh lovely, thank you very much. I still find it a rather convenient way that skeptics will claim, and they keep making these claims, oh I have an anonymous source who made that. Well, you know what they say to us, people are believers who talk about anonymous sources, so I think that's hypocritical.
Yeah.
I'll give you many examples of that. I gave you examples of Annie Jacobson in her book as well. Anybody else? Sir?
What's your thoughts about the fact that there might be an underwater AI alien tech which creates things that people see in the sky? And kind of going back to what you were saying about we don't need to look at there, it's already here, it may actually perceive human life.
Do you say underwater?
Yeah.
I believe that, I don't know specifically what is underwater. I believe there could well be an extraterrestrial presence underwater because of the unidentified submerged objects, the USOs. I think it makes perfect sense if we're being visited by a non-human intelligence that the oceans, assuming they have their technology to do so, which we don't even have, we have submarines that can go down very deep, even to the bottom of the sea, but temporarily for short periods of time. But if they had the technology to create a habitat on the seabed, or below the seabed, they would do so. The reason is, if they wanted to remain concealed from us, it's the perfect place. It's on the Earth and it's somewhere they can hide and we can never see them. This is why I believe the far side of the moon, or sometimes called the dark side of the moon, this is not just a great album by Pink Floyd, it's an actual place, actually is the obvious and ideal spot for them to be. The reason being is that it's very close to the Earth. In cosmic terms, it's right next door. But it's also one of the, it's several 100,000 square miles of real estate there which they can use. But it's also one of the few places in the universe which is invisible from the Earth's surface for a reason other than sheer distance. And it's right next door to us. So I believe there's likely to, and indeed if you believe Carl Wolf and Donna Hare and their testimony at the 2001 Disclosure press conference, there is indeed artificial structures on the side of the moon facing away from the Earth where we can't see them. But specifically, I don't know the answer to your question. Anyone else? Dave or Dad?
Dave,
all right, Dave's Dad.
Alright, it's just a stream of consciousness really, rather than a specific question. I was trained as an academic scientist, so this business about mainstream science ignoring this stuff really pisses me off. So a couple of observations about it. David's younger brother Andrew is involved in psychology, as a psychology PhD, and he studied aspects of parapsychology as part of his mainline course.
Yeah, he sent me a copy of his paper. Very interesting. His thesis. His thesis was very interesting. Yeah.
Oh, what? the out-of-body experience stuff. Sure. Anyway, there's a professional group called the Society for Psychical Research, SPR.
Yeah, SPR, yeah.
And I took Andrew to one of their national conferences. And there was a guy there gave a paper about the history of the whole psychology discipline. Well, you know all about Conan Doyle being a psychic and this kind of thing?
Yes, yeah? Absolutely.
The whole psychology discipline started off as a parapsychology discipline, a mainstream academic parapsychology discipline, and it was taken over by stealth by parapsychology people in the 1920s.
Oh,
and we got the situation now where it's become a sort of side stream thing. You know, it's sort of semi-tolerated. But actually, the whole discipline started off as a parapsychology thing, and I'd never heard that before.
I didn't know that. I mean, that would make...
From about 1880 to 1920.
I assume that would make Carl Jung something of an aggression.
Yeah,
oh, right, that's interesting.
So that's an interesting aspect. But the other thing I was going to mention, why this business about mainstream science ignoring it because they're worried about their careers. What I find so ludicrous about it is that all these people, these scientists, these mainstream scientists who were in denial and refused to study the subject, they know damn well that in the history of science, every single major breakthrough was made by mavericks.
Exactly, yes.
And the classic case is continental drift. Before 1980, nobody believed in continental drift. Within a decade, everybody believed in quantum. Because of course rocks don't move, do they? Well, yes, they can over time, over millions of years.
Yeah, especially when the interior of the Earth is liquid, yes.
And geologists had known this basic fact for a long time, but nobody had added two and two together. You know, so it is utterly ludicrous, this denial. By the
it's very frustrating. Yeah, it's sad that.
But I'm very hopeful now. There has been quite a lot of discussion on the web. The fact that the Pentagon are now officially saying their pilots chasing them, I think is starting to change attitudes.
Yeah.
You know.
I believe that.
Okay, the French and the Brazilians said it long ago, but the fact that the Pentagon said it is certainly changing American scientists' mind of it, I think. So
I mean, it's
moving in a positive direction.
It's a trite phrase, and it's a bit of a cliche, but paradigm shift. Paradigm shifts have happened before. You mentioned continental drift. There's been others. I mean, the revelation. Yeah, there's been other, like the revelations of to do with astronomy and the workings of the human body. And Charles Darwin especially was a massive paradigm shift.
Absolutely, yeah.
And all we're doing now is experiencing another. We're going through a period where we believed we were the only intelligent life on planet Earth and in the universe, and now suddenly we discover we're not. And in the post-disclosure world, people will look back and they will laugh at the very idiots who've been laughing at us.
They will indeed.
Yeah. Thanks very much appreciated.
Okay.
And I know that Andrew's been doing he's been doing work on the idea of studying the skeptics, the psychology of the skeptics, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
I've been doing that myself in my own amateur way. But Dave, you've got a question
it's an interesting area.
You have a question too, Dave?
Yeah, so the question's about Umamaru, right?
About who?
Umamaru, Abbey Loeb, yeah.
Oh, Abbey Loeb, yes. Oumuamua?
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, absolutely, yes. It's alright, yeah.
So, Oumuamua, yeah. So, I never knew, before tonight, that they weren't able to detect that it was looked like the drawings of it. So it was just a blip. Do they have the shape of it? Do they have the shape of it?
They believe they know the shape of it simply because it's its rotation and the fact it reflects light at different volumes. So it's either they believe it's probably long and thin, or possibly like a flat plane. They're not sure. It's one of those. Yeah. It's not your average size. It's not the average shape of a natural object.
Right. Yeah, because it's interesting the way they depicted it as a long rock.
Yeah.
And do you believe that that's intentional to kind of bring it back to this is
it must be, yes, it must be. Hence, all these images, they're rudely christened the turd pictures, because that's what they look like. Yeah. I believe that they are speculation about what a moon might look like, but it's based on the assumption that it's a natural object, which of course is a rejection of Loeb and his team and what they discovered from the Pan-STARRS Observatory. So yeah, absolutely.
And am I right in thinking that it sped up? It changed?
Yes, this is a weird thing. It actually changed. This is one of the things that Avi Loeb and the others actually think. It moved in a way that wouldn't, according to its normal trajectory, that is under Kepler's laws of planetary motion.
Which it wouldn't have done if it was a rock, yeah?
No, it wouldn't. And there's all kinds of straw clutching involved in this. Like they said, well, it's delayed outgassing of hydrogen from a comet. It's a comet but that's never been observed in any other comet.
Yeah.
Oh, comets do change course and radically because they essentially, when they're outgassing, because the outgassing acts as a kind of little rocket engine.
Yes.
But this was when it was beyond the orbit of Jupiter. It's so cold that any liquid inside, any water inside the object would have frozen.
Yeah. Andrew Johnson discussed comets in quite some detail a few talks ago.
Oh yes, he's done an entire presentation about secrets of the solar system and then a good book that goes with it. Yeah. Any more questions or comments, sir?
Simon Holland, you've mentioned quite a lot. He's mentioned a lot of things about the SETI at home.
Yeah.
There was probably a lot of things that were discovered during that. A lot of people figuring this stuff out at home.
Yes.
That were also kind of swept under the carpet.
Oh yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah. So, well, a lot of the work on BLC-1 began apparently with a reassessment of. Well, BLC-1 was discovered in 2019, but he believes. He's told him that they reassessed the data. They did a revision of the data on SETI at home with new computers, and they found out there was lots of interesting things that weren't picked up the first time. That's right. I mean, I'd say to Simon, we need to know more. We need to know more about this system, because Simon is claiming there's modulated signals which include pictures. They're saying that the EU project has specifically been set up to deal with this, and these new telescopes are all about that. But so far, nothing's been published.
There's a picture of Adolf Hitler, that's the question.
Ah, yes, of course. That, of course, was the plot of Contact. Everyone goes nuts because they get triggered by this picture. But all the aliens are doing, as Ellie explained, as she tries to explain why they shut her up, is that this was the first TV signal powerful enough. It's the first ever televised Olympics in 1936. It was the first signal powerful enough to reach that star, and they're just sending it back to us saying, "We heard you." They don't know what it's about. They don't know anything about Hitler and his politics, as they said.
Space Nazis.
How is that?
Another point, if I may, you referred to this communication problem, that if a species is highly advanced compared with us, there's going to be language difficulty, as depicted with the ink blots in Arrival.
Yeah.
Well, just to comment on that, I mean, we all speculate, don't we, on what these UFOs are doing here and why they seem to interact with human beings the way they do. And as a scientist, the one I like is they're just simply studying other lesser species. You know, we send expeditions to discover new species to the Amazon all the time. And the point I wanted to make is that when we discover a new mosquito, we don't bother trying talking to it. We just take samples.
It could be that, yes. It could literally be. I mean, what's their behaviour? What do we know about their behaviour? What do we know about their behaviour? Whereas the abduction contact phenomena, these vary. I mean, it's pretty clear that we're dealing with many different species that come from many different sources. They seem to have very different agendas, and they seem to have a very wide variety of behaviour. The contact experience can varies from person to person. It can be very positive, and some people are very fond of it and they benefit from it. For others, it is painful, terrifying. It's even killed. I mean, people even can suffer death and illness and death as a result of their experience. And also, not all the people who are taken are brought back. And there's a new film by David Paulides talking about the UFO connection to the missing 411 mystery. On the other hand, we know that, for example, they're interested in our nuclear weapons. There's a connection between nuclear weapons. I took a photograph in Scotland. I wasn't photographing a nuclear base. I was on a hiking holiday, but there happened to be a nuclear base in the background, and there was a UFO in the picture. But you know, there are some. The general comment we could make is that we don't. Generally, most people are not in danger, but we are dealing with a potential threat. It is true, and there's nothing wrong with using the word threat when we're talking about capabilities, not intent. But generally, I'd say we're under, as you just said, we're under some sort of observation. And there's not. I don't think there's any point worrying about it. There doesn't seem to be much we can do to stop them, whatever they want to do. So there's no point worrying about it. Don't.
So really, following on from that, it's interesting. We've shifted to talking about the nuclear angle. What are your thoughts on what they've done at the various bases where they've put nukes on and off and that sort of thing? What do you, in your view, what do you think they're trying to do with that?
It's clearly a form of communication. Funny enough, I actually interviewed Stephen Bassett a couple of days ago. We brought this very thing up. So the video's on my channel if you want to see it. They're clearly stating that, it's difficult to know what they mean when they want to do this, because one thing they're obviously saying is, with the Malmstrom incident, for example, and indeed Rendlesham Forest, and indeed, I think the experience of Bob Jacobs, where he saw a rocket being shot down, they're saying, look, you can't touch us with these. They are most potent weapon systems. We can control them. You can't use them against us. Some people have interpreted this as them saying, if you try to use these against each other, we'll intervene and we'll stop you. So now I don't know if that. I hope that would happen. I mean, who wouldn't?
That would be nice.
But I don't think we should bank on it. I don't think we should bank on it. I mean, there was an instance in Ukraine in the 1980s where a missile battery, the opposite happened to Malmstrom. The missiles were actually activated. And this is very well documented. Timothy Good has interviewed the people involved. They were panicking because, of course, they knew that if these missiles went off, there would be a retaliatory. They would kill millions of their target, but then there'd be a retaliatory strike, etc., and there'd be an exchange of weapons. They would desperately try and shut these things down, but it was like as with Malmstrom, there was an object in the vicinity, an unknown object, and luckily the launch sequence stopped just before blast off. And what message are they giving there? It's like they're trying to scare the excrement out of us. Or what message are they, you see, it's difficult to know what they're actually trying to communicate there.
It's probably the same as the other way around.
Yeah. What's that there you got? Oh right.
Jackson. It came out about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, right. I've not heard of that one.
You probably
Does anyone else have a question or comment?
Yeah, I've mentioned this so many times in different conversations about why we can't apparently communicate with these things. It could literally not even be a language barrier. It could be as simple as we're trying to send a text and they've got sitting at a laptop sending emails and they just can't. Or we're sending a messenger on a horse with a piece of paper and they're waiting for an email. We just don't have the technology. They stopped using the stuff we're using.
It could be, yeah. I mean,
we sent them a physical LP, the golden disc. Do you think anybody's ever going to read that?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the SETI stuff is ridiculous in this sense. It's so full of assumptions. There's so much anthropomorphizing. It's unbelievable. It's totally.
And the ego that they even care about us at all. They could just be here looking at the planet and we just happen to be on it.
Well, it could be, you see, we're like the ants in
that's quite possible.
You know, if you ever read the book Roadside Picnic by Boris and Arkady Stroganov, this is a Russian novel from the 70s. It was made into a film, which is like a completely different plot, but basically it's about a strange incident where extraterrestrials land, they leave behind some artifacts in this area called the Zone, and they just bugger off and they just go. And this is a completely new scenario because everyone's thinking, will the extraterrestrials actually be benevolent? Will they be friendly? Will they be hostile? What if they just don't even notice us?
Yeah.
What if it's like a roadside picnic? In other words, you go and sit by the side of the road, you leave loads of apple cores and old sandwiches around, and ants come and crawl over them, and they don't know what they are, and it's confusing for them because they don't know what these things are. But we who left them behind don't really care about those ants. And maybe that's how that's what happens in this particular book.
And you like to think of the ants going back to their little ant nest. Oh,
yeah.
These people, they came in and they left these apple cores. I wonder what it means.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
It means nothing. And that's the point of that book. Yeah. That's what's interesting about the book. The book. What happens is the effects are incredible though, because in this particular zone, all the laws of reality go upside down. Everything's back to front. It's like. It's like a totally, it's like a surreal world.
Yeah.
And these stalkers, these people, you may have seen the film Stalker, the Russian film by Andrei Tarkovsky. It's like a spin-off from that book. They're the only people who go in there because they know what they're doing, and they have to. And if you want to go into the zone, you have to get a stalker to guide you.
Sounds like Annihilation.
It's like Annihilation, only it's better.
Yeah.
Annihilation could have been a great movie, but it was ruined. Has anyone else got any questions or comments? Hello, Amanda.
Do you think that Carl Sagan is feeding us a particular narrative that he's been told?
I don't see this. If you've watched Dark Skies, haven't you? You haven't?
I have.
Yes, you'll know the episode which features Sagan, where he's shown before he's famous. He's shown the aliens, and they're saying, right, you're going to have to tell people, you're going to have to twist people's minds so they don't believe in these things. It's like I said, either he's willfully ignorant or completely stupid. He's not. He's a very intelligent man.
He's a very intelligent guy.
Or he is. In fact, he never changed his position for all of his media career. Indicates that he is actually lying. And we don't know, he died in the 90s, we can't say.
I heard that he changed his stance originally, he did believe in them more, when he was much younger.
Yeah,
and
this
then
is...
he was told, if you stick to that point of view, you'll never get academic success. No sort of accreditation.
Well, that's the problem I was referring to.
And basically, that will be the end of your
career.
Yeah, I mean, if he's kept believing... I heard a rumour that he actually started believing UFOs when he was like a kid, you know. Because if he had, he'd probably end up as some librarian and no one would have even known his name.
Sure.
Rather than this great pop scientist who made TV programmes and things. That's it's an interesting thought.
I've seen some evidence about that, because he was on some committee or something when he was a scientist when he was younger. And they came out with some positive stuff. And he got told afterwards, don't go down that route. And he changed his mind.
Yeah, it could be. Any more questions or comments, ladies and gents?
Comment, absolutely superb talk, man.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Well, it's Friday morning.
The passenger dogs for crufts, please use the wide-out ticket barrier gates on exit and entry to the station. Thank you.
Woof, bloody woof. Right, where was I? Yeah, it's Friday morning.
This is the passenger announcement. If you wish to travel with a bicycle on Avanti West Coast services, please make sure you have a bike reservation before you travel. Once you are on the platform, please make yourself known to a member of staff so you can be boarded onto the train.
Will you shut up? Alright, well, as I was saying, it's Friday morning, it's just over 24 hours. I'll tell you what, I'll come back later. Okay, I've come to the end of the platform. I can get a little bit of peace. This is as far as you can go before we went to the forbidden territory. Yeah, I've come to the end of the platform, sure, it's a bit quiet here, you're out of earshot of or at least the voices on the tannoy is much lower. But as you say, it's Friday morning, it's actually slightly under 24 hours after I left to come here. Very short, sweet visit, but I'll tell you what, it's been great fun. It's been hard work. Putting together that speech was difficult. If you've ever done a public speech, you'll know what I mean. A lot of preparation, a lot of planning to do it right. And proper planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance, as they say, the 7 Ps. And I've done that. I had a fantastic time. There was a really big crowd there. Probably one of the biggest I've seen at BUFOG. There must have been 25 people plus there. For a local group, that's very good. Lovely people I met. Some of them I've seen before. Others are new people. My speech went down very well. Great questions and answers. Dave and Tasha they're a great couple, they are, and they've got a lovely place where they stay and they live, and it's really, really nice. Dave's he's full of memorabilia and stuff like that. There's loads of statues and things to do with aliens, and they're really, really good hosts, and they're really nice people. I've had a fantastic time. I'm still sort of in a kind of I'm wondering where things are going to go with the whole UFO SETI thing. I don't know. I suppose that removing the stigma is a big part of it. Now, one thing I didn't mention, I often forget things I should have said in the speech and didn't. Tabitha Boyajian, who discovered Tabby Star, she did a TED Talk. And it's quite funny in the TED Talk, because if you can get it on, it's still available on YouTube if you want to see, if you want to go to the TED YouTube channel. It's not like Graham Hancock and Rupert Sheldrake. It has actually been permitted. But, and I think the reason it's been permitted is because she's very mainstream. And as she's talking, she's saying, well, extraterrestrial civilization is, we have to eliminate all other possibilities before that, she says. We have to be rational. And I said to them, and that's frustrating, because they never understand why you have to eliminate that possibility. You have to eliminate the possibility of extraterrestrial civilizations. You have to eliminate all other possibilities before you consider extraterrestrial civilizations. I mean, why? Why? I mean, it's a bit windy. My voice might be distorted because of wind on the mic. I mean, it's some kind of principle that the skeptic never really explains. This is literally why I call it the clown's day off fallacy. And there goes a plane. Do you see it going there? I think that's an Airbus. That's an Airbus Jumbo. Yeah. This, as you see, is Birmingham International. It's the airport that serves Birmingham it serves Birmingham International Airport and the National Exhibition Centre, which is over there, I believe. I remember being stuck here for I can't remember the circumstances, but I was stuck here for hours on end for some reason years ago. I can't remember exactly why. It's odd that Tabitha Boyajian is in this TED Talk. It's pretty clear she's desperate. She states several times in different ways she's desperate not to be associated with the likes of us. She doesn't want to be considered a loony, in that case, someone who believes in aliens. But she had to admit at the end of the day that one of the possibilities of the signature she discovered from the star, KIC 2462582, one of the possibilities is that this was a Dyson sphere. This is the kind of signature you would get if there was a Dyson sphere there. That is exactly what it would look like, and she had to admit that. So I think a time's going to come when it's when scientists can speak open. Scientists in her position with a mainstream career can speak openly without without constantly having to fill whatever they're saying with disclaimers every other sentence that they don't, you know, well, I'm not an alien believer, I'm not a UFO person, you know, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Anyway, yeah, there's something, I think airports that serve, airports serving railway stations or tube stations, they have a particular atmosphere, I always notice. Come to Birmingham, see the world, yeah. That's actually a good slogan, isn't it? Come to Birmingham, see the world. That's kind of a slogan for the entire airport, I would say. Anyway, guys, time to go home. It's only a 1 hour train ride if the train is on time. Now that's amazing. Look, there's a nice mural there. Obviously, if this was in Oxford, I'd make it part of my Oxford graffiti video. But there's like it's like a tessellation of multiple shapes blended together, colourful. It looks to me like a collection, like a big bunch of national flags of various kind. None that I can identify, but that's what it seems to me to be the case. It's nice they decorated the station that way. Very, very good. Good. Going back. Believe it or not, they accept cash. That's the second time I've been on the train where they accept cash, which is actually pretty good. So I'm back in Oxford. But well, it's been a lovely day and evening away. I've had a great time. It's hard work, but it's very rewarding. And I'm really, really pleased to have done my talk for the Birmingham UFO group. They were a very appreciative audience. And once again, all I can say is thank you very much to Dave, to Tasha, to everyone else at BUFOG. And I hope you, the Panmo TV viewers, enjoyed this as well. What's coming up? I'm not sure, actually. I've got several plans. I'll let you know when the videos are uploaded. In the meantime, thank you for watching Panmo TV. Hospital Port as pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.